Well, okay, so Jon I, which in Roman numerals is more like Jon I, or Jon I, which kind of sounds like the name of a pope. In fact, Jon I, I just looked it up. There you go. He was pope between 523 and 526 Anno Domini. Huh? See? This channel is all about culture and shit. And there goes my cat, who does not approve. Okay, all right, fair enough. And you probably didn't come here for that either. So, dear listener, let's put the Vatican's encyclopedia aside for the time being. Right. So, in Jon the First, in A Storm of Swords, and the last time we left Jon back in Clash of Kings, he wasn't doing terribly well in his career, right? I mean, he'd just been taken prisoner by the Free Folk, which was actually part of a plot to infiltrate the Wildlings, a plot concocted by Corin Halfhand, something along the lines of, okay, Jon, so you yield and then allow them to take you prisoner, and after a while you just ask them to sign you up, and they'll let you have a chat with human resources, and easy as pie. Yeah? And once you're in, you try to find out as much as you can about them. Yeah? Now, don't worry too much about the part, about technically betraying the Night's Watch and breaking your oaths, which, as you know, is punishable by death. Don't worry about that, because I'll vouch for you and tell your commander, Lord Commander Mormont, that it was all my idea, and you'll be all right. Which it all sounded pretty good on paper, except that what do you do when the only person who can vouch for you is dead? Oh yeah, because I forgot to mention that part. As a demonstration that he really wanted to be recruited by the Free Folk to show that he had what it took, He was asked to go a little beyond a simple motivation letter. He was actually asked to kill Corin Halfhand, which he did, and which Corin knew and expected all along, by the way. So yeah. And so this is where we last saw him, in the hands of the Wildlings, sort of like, we'll take you to our leader, he'll know what to do with you, kind of trope. And this is where I turn to my trusty timeline titled The Most Precise ASOIAF Timeline in Existence, a document you can find online, an Excel spreadsheet. And it appears that this chapter actually precedes the chapter where Sansa receives an invitation to supper from Marjorie and Lady Olenna. Sansa 1, that is, which is a chapter that actually appears right before this one on the published novel. In fact, the creators of this timeline have sandwiched this Jon I right between the two Davos chapters, Davos 1 and Davos 2, no relation to the World Economic Forum summits. So here's Jon being taken to Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall, by his captors. The world was grey darkness, smelling of pine and moss and cold. There, we're already transported there. And this thing about cold, having a particular smell, this thing has cropped up before, hasn't it? There's a cold smell about Craster, said Tywin, clacking his wooden teeth. Remember that? And in that other chapter where Jon uncovers, the same chapter where Jon uncovers that mysterious obsidian daggers, those mysterious obsidian daggers, dragonglass, in a Night's Watch uniform, right there, somewhere in the vicinity of the Fist of the First Men. It's Tywin again, that's who says to Gren, "I smell cold." I smell cold. That's an interesting collocation there. This was in a Clash of Kings, Jon 4, And there's no smell to cold, was the reply from Gren, who doesn't really get metaphors. Except that there is, and it seems that Darwin could smell the others with a capital O, getting near. So is this the same kind of smell that Jon is picking on right now? So anyway, so Jon sees for the first time the sheer size of the wildlings' camp, thousands of fires all along the Milkwater River, and he's thinking, what the fahren auf der Autobahn? This is bizarre. Villages upon villages on the move. Not just fighters, not just soldiers, if you can call them that, but families. Ghost who's with him, checking out the environment, and he's already kicked some ass, just for good measure. Mainly hounds belonging to the free folk, and his captors are therefore keeping a good eye on him. Then there's Rattleshirt, who prefers to be called the Lord of Bones, who's been a bit rude to Jon, and there's also Ygritte, the woman Jon couldn't bring himself to killing. So now she's back and she's all like, yeah, you built up a good resume, man, killing Corin and all that. So Mance, our king, is totally going to dig you, man. He's going to welcome you. Welcome aboard, young man. While Rattleshirt is a bit of a contrarian here and elsewhere. And he's all like, no, Mance will see through this man. He will unravel the tapestry of deceit that is woven before your very eyes. That's how Rattleshirt actually speaks. Some of these bits were lost in translation. And so yeah, no one. But besides, no one really listens to Rattleshirt. Rattleshirt, yeah, Rattleshirt. Rattleskirt, I was going to say. Rattleshirt, even though he's technically in charge, but you know how it is, free folk. Yeah, they follow a leader because they choose to. That they don't necessarily have to obey him all the time. And they've all looted Corin's possessions. I mean, cloak, boots, even his bones, which Rattleshirt is now carrying in a bag. Davos is an amateur when it comes to carrying bones around. So anyway, they're greeted by Mance's outriders, among them one named the Weeper. Whether this character is going to be important or not, for the life of me, I can't actually tell right now. I've forgotten the Weeper, who I think he's got some congenital, I don't know, he weeps as a condition. And he says, all right, take him to Mance, and he'll decide what to do with this guy. And Jon is all excited, because he's thinking about his mission, to find out what it is that the wildlings are looking for here in the wilderness. This is something that Corin Halfhand had mentioned previously. He said, some vague power, he had said. The wildlings are out here. They've abandoned their comfortable homes. Well, comfortable is a bit of a euphemism. They've abandoned their comfortable abodes, and they're out here in the wilderness, and gods only know what they're looking for. But I'm sure it's some vague power of sorts, which we absolutely must find out everything about. So now he's thinking. Jon is thinking, if I get close to Mance, I can maybe ask him, or I'll do some sleuthing. I don't know, like a proper detective. I'll go through his drawers when he's not looking. I mean, his desk drawers. Yeah, I don't mean his underwear. And maybe I'll find out some clues. But in the meantime, he's the what do you call it? The insider. He's playing the insider, sort of a trope. So they walk through the camp, or camps rather, because there's one for every clan. Jon notices that there's a lot of warlike stuff going on, drills, spear training, and so on, but not much in terms of military discipline. And then Jon spots the king's tent, which is the largest one, with music coming out of it. So he walks in. The two guards outside don't allow Ghost inside. Ghost's reputation precedes him. So predictably, he said, "Okay, well, the ghost, the dire wolf stays outside. Yeah, all right." And he walks in with his lovely companions. He walks in and finds a kind of what he finds inside the tent is sort of like a hippie commune. All the tropes are there. There's the smoky red gloom, a pregnant gal cooking, a couple of lovers sharing a drink, while an older guy in grey hair is playing and singing. Kind of like a beatnik sort of party. Think Vito Polikas and the Freaks, Carl Franzoni, those historical hippie cult leaders, or cult, guru, whatever, hippie leaders from the late 60s. And any minute, someone might just start reciting some avant-garde experimental poetry. A spider on a web. Oh, pain. Pain. Clap, clap, clap. All right. Have another glass of Chardonnay. I don't know. So, actually, you know what? This kind of scenario, when you think that George R.R. Martin was like one in his 20s during the Summer of Love, I don't think it's too far-fetched that he might have been partially inspired by that kind of scenario when he wrote this scene. And by the way, dear listener, can I just say that how the way the HBO series portrays the first encounter between Jon and Mance, which isn't really their first encounter, but more on that later, the way it's shown in the series isn't nearly as good as this chapter is. By comparison, itchy. Sorry. By comparison, it's the HBO series encounter between Jon and Mance is a bit underwhelming as compared to this. This is striking, in my humble view. Okay, this is just my view, not a fact. Anyway, so the song the geezer is actually singing is titled "The Dornish Man's Wife," about adultery and sacrifice. And I feel like we are at a stage here in the book series, where a bit of world building now comes in the form of songs, since we had fragments of the lyrics from The Bear and the Maiden Fair only a chapter ago. And it's almost as if Martin must have thought, oh God, yeah, songs, everybody's singing songs, there are singers, there are lutes, and I haven't even, given a morsel, a taster of such a rich tapestry of musical repertoire to my readers. So here's The Dornish Man's Wife. So, and then in the tent there are two proper warriors in the tent. These guys look as mean as ever, and one of them, bald guy with no ears, as far as I remember. I've got a description right here. I know about the ears, missing ears, possibly to frostbite. He questions Jon. So who are you? Is that what you did? All right, okay. So let's take a look at your record, your resume. And this is where we learn that one of the men that Jon killed on the Skirling Pass there in the what's it called, Clash of Kings, was called Orell, and this will become important later on the subject of warging. And Jon mistakes this earless guy for Mance for some reason. Oh, I guess because he's the first who spoke up. Jon, don't you know anything about misdirection and gaslighting. It's then revealed that Mans was actually the guy who was playing the lute, sitting and quietly listening. Clever, clever Mans. And also, even more clever, Mans seems to have the entire file on Jon. That he's Ned's bastard son, that he was born and bred in Winterfell. He's got all the intel on him. So, introductions. The earless guy is called Styr. I don't know how to pronounce his name. All I know is that his title or style kind of sounds like an Irish cider. He's the Magnar of Ten. Ten being a region way out there, and Magnar means lord. So he's like a leader of a tribe out there in an unmapped, uncharted territory. The other fella's called Tormund, who goes by a lot of names like Giant's Bane and Thunder Fist, and the categorical pragmatist and Mikey Gaga and Tommy Bombats and so on. And then we meet. Well, he's got a lot of surnames. He's got a lot of nicknames and a lot of tall tales that you really should take with a pinch of salt, as we shall later find out. We also meet Walla, which means I swear to you in Arabic. It's the truth, something along those lines. Walla is pregnant with Mance's baby, and there's Walla's sister Val as well, who's supposed to be like this super hot blonde gal, currently dating this other guy named Young Jarl. Almost, by the way, dear listener, all of these characters will make it to the next book. The next book being A Dance with Dragons. So keep an eye on them, dear reader. I won't tell you which ones because no spoilers, and I promised you in this commentary I will only be looking back, not forward, in the off chance that you're a first-time reader. And if that is the case, by now you'll be going, well, but surely the next book in the series is A Feast for Crows. Ah, good question. That didn't sound like a question, but but you know that the books 4 and 5 were actually split not chronologically but geographically, and those timelines, the timelines described in books 4 and 5, kind of like run on a parallel course, sort of like simultaneously. Which is why, if I make it that far, I'm kind of tempted to do a commentary on the Feast Dance, or A Feast with Dragons, or A Dance for Crows, or whatever readers call it. The combined reading. I'm tempted to do that, actually. I'm tempted to embark on that project and consider that book as just one ginormous book, even I'd say about 25 to 50% longer than this here book that I hold in my hands right now. So that ambitious project. Walla didn't make it to the Walla character didn't make it to the HBO series, unfortunately, because I'm really curious. Do you think like a Margot Robbie could have played her, or have you got someone else in mind that fits this description? Who knows? I don't know. I'm open to suggestions. So so there he is, Jon, and he doesn't want to reveal that there's like 300 men of the Night's Watch out there by the Fist of First Man, or that's where he thinks they are anyway. So he tells Mans, what was I doing out there? Well, I was just training. I was training drills, with Corin, ranging and whatnot. Doing a bit of the old ranging, conducting military drills, seasoning, as he calls it. Seasoning. We were just seasoning with those other Shadow Tower guys Eben, Stone Snake, Squire Dullbridge. I don't remember them off the top of my head. I have them written down here in my notes. That's how professional I am. And he mentioned those guys because it doesn't matter, they're dead. They're dead. And actually, and the wildlings know that, because I think Eben was beheaded by one of the wildlings. And okay, no, it's okay to mention those. And then what else is and that is this. Okay, so this is where Mance says, okay, good, it's a good story. It's a good story, but I'll get some more truth, some proper truth out of you before long. So at this point, Mance asks everybody to leave except for his gal Walla and Jon, so they can share mead and meat, chicken meat to be precise. And it's at this point that Mance explains to Jon that the two of them have already met twice, actually. Well, the first time doesn't really count. I mean, it's not important for the story, I think. Not for the overall, the overall story, the saga. First time was when Mance was still in the Night's Watch, so some 10 years ago, I suppose. He says Jon was a child at the time, so I don't really know, 10, 11 years ago. Anyway, that was in Winterfell, and Mance was part of the escort for the Lord Commander at the time, a different LC. Nothing to see here, I think. But the second time, now that's interesting. That was at the time when the late King Robert came to Winterfell to bestow on the equally late Lord Eddard Stark the post of Hand to the King. So that was a big deal in the north. The king is coming, the king is here. So a lot of this happened in book one, of course. A Game of Thrones, and see, Mance had disguised himself as a singer, complete with lute and everything. And here, in this chapter, he recounts how he casually scaled 700 feet of ice, to get his ass on the other side of the wall, in the vicinity of Castle Longbarrow, which was and still is unmanned at the moment. And he infiltrated the huge entourage of free riders and freeloaders on their way to Winterfell, just to take a look at King Robert. See, kind of clever, and he also tells Jon that even if he'd been discovered, Ned couldn't have lopped his head off, because hospitality being sacred and all, guest rights, you can't harm a guest under your own roof once you've shared bread with this hypothetical guest, because if you harm them, the gods will curse you. God, seriously, there is so much foreshadowing at this point. I love it. Bear this in mind. The fact that Mance can disguise himself as a singer because he knows all the repertoire, he could fool anybody, and he can take requests, and he could pass for a proper singer. So that's a skill that might come in handy in a future book. Then you've got guest rights, important here, mentioned here, and which might be grossly violated in a future pivotal chapter in this same book. Say no more, just keep all these things in mind, and that is all I'm going to say on the matter. So anyway, now it's time for Mance to really question Jon, ask him the actual question. Why did you really? Come on now, that proves now. Why did you really? That's how Mance. That's how it sounds. Why did you really decide to break your oath, huh? And join the Free Folk just like that on a whim, just to try out, just to see. What are you, some thrill seeker? And it becomes kind of like a game, because then John goes, no, 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 you tell me why you took the same decision so and so many years ago. No, 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 you first. No, no, you first. No, you first. No, you first. And Mance goes, okay, I'll tell you what. See if you can guess. All right, you got 3 guesses. Right, you wanted to become king, and you couldn't be a king in the Night's Watch. And he goes, no, 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 John, no, no, no. You're cold right now. Cold. You're cold as well as this part of the world, really. Okay then. Second guess for a woman. You lusty old bugger. Maybe this here lady, huh? No, John, no, no, no. You're still cold. My partner Dalla here is blameless. Okay then. Your love for wildling music. I swear that's what he says. And he goes, which I thought was a bit of a weird guess when you think about it. But apparently Mance goes, aha, warmer. You're getting warmer, John, but still no cigar. Shall I tell you? Yeah, your time is up. I'll tell you. Okay, it was because of the color black. See this black cloak? It's the color black, and it doesn't really agree with me. I've always wanted to wear pink, so now it's your turn. There, I said it. Actually, no. It's a lot more nuanced than that. It's nothing as simplistic as that. It says, ooh, I want to wear something other than black if I wish to. It's actually part of a great story, a flashback that Mance tells of one ranging he was on years ago when he was still in the Watch, and how the wildlings healed him after he was nearly mauled to death by a shadow cat. And this wildling woman sewed up his black cloak in different colors, which were colors that were not allowed back in Shadow Tower. So, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it justice. It's a beautiful story, and I suggest you just go and read. I assume you've read it, and if you haven't, I encourage you to. And I'll just read the bottom line here. I kept it. I underlined it. Yeah. I wanted to be in a place. I'm slightly paraphrasing. I wanted to be in a place where a kiss was not a crime, and a man could wear any cloak he chose. There. That is why. Ha! Nice. Poignant. John, it's your turn. So now it's really John's turn, yeah, to turn up his cards. And he shows some quick thinking there. Good for you, John. Good for you. And he goes, okay, Mance. Well, I'll tell you what. If you were at Winterfell during the feast, the feast that you mentioned earlier, when King Robert was there, and you disguised as a singer, well, then you happen to notice that every highborn of my generation, every highborn boy and girl of my generation was seated just under the dais, that master's table, whatever you call it, the dais, and that's where they were seated. And well, did you happen to see where I was seated? Because I'm not a true-born, and I don't, and I didn't, and I still don't deserve, apparently, not worth, of taking my seat next to my siblings. Because, God forbid, right? Yeah, we knew he had this chip on his shoulders. All right, so then, you can guess, he goes, you can guess, dear Mance, that I was tired of all those social conventions, and you guys are the free folk, man. The opposite of that, the opposite of conventions, social conventions. The brothers of the Night's Watch might call each other brothers, we're all equals, but they're not. They're no better. So basically, when I joined the Night's Watch, I fled a cage only to end up in another. He says all that, but in way, way fewer words, actually. I was a bit redundant here, but He actually, yeah, he summarizes pretty well, succinctly, which I could not, apparently. And okay, so this is a grot, a great, a great plot, a grot. It's a great plot connection right here between Jon 1, this chapter, and Jon 1 from A Game of Thrones, the way these two characters remember that particular evening way back. So there's a lovely connection there, and I just had to go and reread Jon 1 from Game of Thrones, and there it is on the same page. See, the same page. Luckily, I've got. There you go. The same page where the singer is that mysterious singer whose identity we now know. That singer is described, he's there, he's doing his thing, he's singing, and Jon can barely hear him because they're not in the same room. And Jon is right there, in fact, on the benches, sitting next to the younger squires and drinking more than he should. And because we're in Jon's mind back then, it's a Jon POV chapter, we read that he keeps telling himself that he's actually glad that he's a bastard, that he's not a true-born. But what he actually does, that's what he thinks to himself, but what he actually does proves that he's really lying to himself. Because he's having a bit too much wine, and he practically ends up in tears by the end of this chapter. So, and not even his Uncle Benjen is of great comfort. In fact, the only person that night, the only person who cheers him up a bit is another great outcast, Tyrion. That was a memorable chapter, a great introduction of two solid characters. And obviously Mance and Jon must have exchanged a few casual glances at some point back then. Jon, not even a clue who this singer is, but the singer knowing only too well who Jon is. And I like to think that, yes, Mance got a good look at all the Stark family and the king, and he said, I couldn't miss this opportunity for all the gold in the world. But I like to think that he got a closer look at Jon than he did all the other Stark siblings, his Stark siblings, half siblings. Even though the singer was performing for the royal family, so and the house lord, so and lady back in the hall, but when he did get a chance to have a good look at Jon, I think he did. I think he did, because even back then, he was kind of fond of him. Don't you know? I like to think that was it. That was it, because look, Jon by now has gone through I don't know how many father figures already. Of course, it's there's Ned, there's the Lord Mormont, there's Corin Halfhand. Each of them teach him a different lesson, in this hero's journey. Now it's time to bring up another father figure, which I as far as I remember, Mance totally is. So he goes, okay, all right, yeah, all right, good story, Jon. Mance says to that. He goes, well done. I see what you mean. Yeah, I get you. I buy that. Right, sure. Why don't we get you all, fitted with a new cloak? Let's see what we can find here in this wardrobe. And then it's off to human resources for a bit of orientation. Welcome aboard, young man. Just as Ygritte was saying. And I don't know about you, but do you know what? I always felt, I always still do, I always feel a bit sadly uncomfortable whenever this kind of thing happens in a story. When a character goes undercover and he wins the trust, because he has to, he wins the trust and even affection of people that he or she will eventually have to betray. If they manage to remember where their loyalty really lies, ultimately. But like I'm thinking Donnie Darko. No, not Donnie Darko. Sorry, I always confuse those titles. Donnie Brasco. I'm thinking Donnie Brasco, the Johnny Depp character, who kind of forms a bond with the Al Pacino character, and the latter, even ends up looking at him like the son he wishes he had. And that sucks because ultimately he has to put them all in behind bars. And I guess this is the thought of the day. Is there a name for this trope? The undercover, because I looked in TV tropes, tvtropes.com, and there is an entry titled "The Infiltration." Go out there, you'll see it. See, it's all there. But of all the sub-tropes listed, I couldn't find one where the undercover character develops a bond of friendship with the enemy organization, making it even more difficult for the protagonist to eventually do their duty and then, betray the enemy organization. So that's, if there's a name for that trope, please let me know, because I'm a bit masochistic here, and even though that trope makes me suffer, makes me sad, I would like to know how many movies have been made, how many books have been written with that trope at their center of the story. So how is all this going to turn up for Jon? We all wonder. And, well, let's read on, my friend, and I hope this was as entertaining and engrossing as it was for me. I believe our next chapter is Daenerys. Oh, don't we all love a good Daenerys chapter? Too few and too far apart is what I say. All right, well, thank you for following me all the way down here to what is known as the end of the episode. And, well, see you around.